If you start with what problem you solve and you can articulate it that fast, truly, then what you will be doing is attracting the right type of investors. Because if you get alignment with your investors, there's so many things that are positive about that. When things don't go right, and they never always go right, then what ends up happening is when they don't get it, you start getting lawsuits and all sorts of other challenges, and you end up managing the investors instead of managing the business.
In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us and visit our website, BeinhakerLaw.com. Thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the show. As always, I'm Mitch Beinhaker, your host. Welcome back to another episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. We're in the 400s now, so we're cooking. Yeah. We'll be going to be talking to Tom in a minute about his background and what he does and all the founders he works with and everything. So I always remind everybody, if you're listening on your favorite directory, leave us a 5-star review if you can. If you don't want to leave us a 5-star review, you can leave us a lower review or leave us no review. I appreciate honesty. We can improve the show. If you are watching us on YouTube, share, subscribe, like us, because we're continuing to drive the video channel of the show. If you are also a sports enthusiast, I have just started a new sports podcast. My son moved to Fort Worth, Texas, and we jump on every Monday night and talk about NBA and NFL draft and hockey and WNBA and all the stuff that he likes to talk about. So if you check it out, it's called Benches and Bleachers. We're about like 400. We're like 4 episodes in on YouTube. So there's really no audio version yet, I don't think. I always remind everybody, if you're listening, the information that we share, Tom and I are going to share, are for entertainment purposes only. It's not a guarantee of success or advice of any kind. And if you're making decisions based on stuff you hear, always check with local licensed professionals before doing it. So, Tom, thanks for coming on the show. I got to say something, though. I get bios from assistants all the time. I got to read this, right? So I usually get bios, and they're just, Tom did this, and this is his background. So this is the way his bio starts out. Imagine this. It's 2 a.m., the screen from your laptop hums while your idea, your capital, and your team hang in the balance. You need the next step spelled out, a conversation with someone who can turn those uncertainties into clarity. So you had me at hello. I was like, okay, well, you definitely got a team that's working for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I never even know what they're going to say about me. One day I'm going to show up and it's going to be something that has no relevance, and I'm going to have to punt with it at some
Right. I figured you didn't even know that, right? Because they're sending it out, right?
They want to do that. Yeah.
They wanted to catch my attention, right? All right. So why don't we? By the way, where are you located?
I live in Lake Tahoe.
Oh, nice. So it's 3 o'clock here. So it's like 1 o'clock there or noon?
Just noon.
Noon.
Yep.
Okay, good. So you got midday. You got a day left. I'm almost done here. I was in Salt Lake once for business a couple of times. Beautiful city. So
Beautiful city.
How far is Lake Tahoe from Salt Lake?
By flight is about 50 minutes, 50 minutes.
Oh, you got to fly.
Yeah. And then by car, it's about 7-8 hours.
Okay. So it's pretty far.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just there skiing just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks
Nice.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. In May, you can ski out there.
Yeah. Well, it was end of April, but yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, could go skiing this weekend down in Mammoth.
Nice.
That's actually what I do, and everything else I do was to support the. As a matter of fact, I was just on with the executive director for the U.S. ski team.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
very active in the ski industry. I am the chairman of a nonprofit ski mountain, snowboard mountain.
Nice.
That we get adaptive skiers and boarders up there and all sorts of things.
So can you ski in shorts? Is that true at certain times, or that's not true?
No, absolutely. I do a lot of summer training. I'll be down in Chile in the summer as well, but it'll be their winter. But yes, you can. I don't recommend it if you're doing anything.
Still cold, right? I mean, the snow's frozen.
No, it can be really hot on the air temperature. The
Right.
snow, if you do fall, and when you do fall, yes, that's going to be cold. But it's like jumping into a cold lake. You're in.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's kind of like jumping in the Atlantic. It's not that bad.
So it's not like you're going to get like frostbite on your skin.
Only if you end up being stuck there. And at Mount Hood, which is up in Oregon, we do summer race camps, and that's a glacier. And invariably, somebody dies every season because a storm comes in and they don't think about it, and they're up on a glacier and they're not prepared. These are usually hikers, not skiers.
I was going to say, these are hopefully not campers. You lose one a season. That's not a good record.
No, they're hikers,
Yeah.
climbing up the glacier.
They shouldn't be up there,
Somebody, they don't, they get lost, they fall, they die.
Oof.
We find them someday down the road.
Ugh. God. Oof. That must be terrifying for the students. The kids try to find a body sticking out of the snow. Man.
Fortunately, it's none of our kids that are skiing
good.
on the mountain. It's a little bit up further, and it's a little bit off on the crevasse. And it's not one a year. Mount
Right.
Hood. I'm probably making really bad.
Not like you're going down the slope and there's hands sticking up.
No, that doesn't happen very often.
Okay, good. So why don't you, we're getting off topic. So why don't you tell me, I know you said you started your first business when you're 12.
Yep.
What did you start? Was it paper route or something?
Kind of. No, I had a paper route when I was like 7 and started folding the newspaper.
What do they do to children in Utah? Make them work when they're
they do. Yeah, no, it's a freedom to work scenario. Actually, really good for this. Total aside, if you've not met Connor Boyack, he's got the Tuttle twins out there, and one of the main things he's gotten the legislation across the country that kids can have lemonade stands. He's actually gotten the state.
I heard about that because it was like,
he'd be a great guest for you because I'm
okay.
Great,
Hook me up with him. Yeah, because you in most states you need to be 14 to get a working papers,
and you can't do it. And they come by and they harass them, and the food department comes by and they don't have a grease pit, and it's like all these different things.
That's ridiculous.
$42,000 later, you can open up your
for 25 cents. They sold 4 lemonades.
So my background was, my parents weren't around by the time I was 12 through illness and injuries and different things. So my older sister was raising me, and we live in the Sierras. It's cold here, and because she's only slightly older than me, we didn't have a lot of income. So I'm growing up in a breezeway between a house and a garage. We had food, but we didn't always have heat. Wow. And so starting to figure out how I can make more money than just a paper route was... we have a lot of snow and we have yards that are going on. And I said, gosh, I can mow lawns and I can shovel sidewalks and I can watch people's pets. So we started a home care business at that time, and I was able to recruit teammates from the football team and the baseball team to work for me. And I started.
So this is like a real business.
It was a real business. No, and I actually talked to banking to open a payroll account for me, a 12-year-old back then. Yeah. Now, it's the 70s, so
I understand. You couldn't do it today.
You couldn't do it today. No.
So how old was your sister?
She was 20 at the time.
Oh, because she was old enough to be your guardian. Yeah.
Yeah. It was
by law.
By law, she was.
I don't know. Mentally, she was able to, but legally, she could.
She still is damaged from this scenario.
I'm sure that was very hard for her. Yeah.
So anyway, but I had a couple problems. I didn't have a snow shovel, nor did I have a lawnmower or any of the equipment. So the first thing I had to do was recruit a friend, who then we had to talk to their parents, get that stuff donated or brought in. And so that was actually my first I realized that's the first time I raised capital to help do a startup.
Yeah.
Was about 12. Didn't know that was what was going on, but that really was. And that grew into my career. I through a number of circumstances, I ended up working in a big bank in Silicon Valley in the 80s.
Okay.
And became a very young, deemed the youngest vice president in the bank's history, 140-year bank history at the time. And it's because what I really somewhat understood was what small business people were like, and that bank wanted small business people. So in 92, the first real major downturn of my adult career happened, real estate major crash in California.
Yeah.
And I had people that had been coming down from the big interest rates of 18, 16, 14% as customers, and I had other customers that were bank customers, very bankable, but the bank wasn't lending. And so we started our first Reg D offering, not even knowing how to spell Reg D, let alone what it actually was or anything else.
Yeah, just for people listening, Reg D is like private placement. We're talking accredited investors, people that are investing. The rules were a little tighter then. And by the way, also for people listening, so I knew this too because my grandfather would walk down the street to get an extra quarter of a point on his CDs he was getting, whatever, 16, 18%, just so everybody thinks that's so unbelievable. Inflation was like 22%. So everything was relative at the time. Yeah, that was under Reagan, right? It was like in the 80s?
Well, it was Carter
into
that. Stagflation led into these, and you had our Fed chair that's battling that. Then Reagan came in and actually continued to raise for a while. Then it dropped.
Then it started
and then we came down to where, but I remember when people were renewing their 15, 16% CDs, and they're renewing at 10,
right?
And they're just dying. I mean, they still have a 10%.
Right.
CD.
Plus, they're locked into a mortgage at very high rates. It's crazy.
Huge.
It was a crazy time.
My first mortgage was a 12% ARM.
12% adjustable.
Yeah.
it would probably go up a lot too. Now so you obviously 12, you lost your parents, but you did stay in school. So you went through school, you went through high school, and you went through college, because how else would you be working in banking, right?
Yeah, I got a couple degrees.
Okay.
Ended up going to Harvard for my advanced degrees. Then I got a doctorate
Yep, Dr.
in
Thomas
law and
Powell,
policy. So I got 2 law degrees, did Pritzker Law School, finance, MBA, studied abroad.
You have your MBA and your JD?
Yeah.
You like to be a student, don't you?
I do like to be a
Glutton for
I'm
punishment.
also a university professor, type of
Yeah,
thing.
that helps.
I basically can't keep a job. All of that came about because just one, truly a love for learning. And our business became very successful. Part of it was timing, part of it was location. We're in Silicon Valley. And we got a niche for being able to help founders, specifically founders, raise capital. And that was important because if you go to the early 90s and you've got .com 1.0, so I don't know how old your viewers and listeners are, but .com 1.0 ends in 99
Right.
when it blows up.
Yep.
And everybody thought in
Pretty
that
much everything
industry-
blew up except Amazon. That was about it.
Yeah. Well, they were just starting. So
Yeah.
my
But they lost
Amazon
money
account
for a
goes
long
back to-
time, didn't they?
For a decade.
Yeah,
More than a
decade. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So my thing goes back to 99, my Amazon account. So anyway, we raised this money. We started doing a number of different ventures, and that grew into our company. We relocated from San Francisco back to Nevada, which is where my family's roots are from. My
So
grandfather
did
was
you
a prospect.
become what the early stages of a private equity group, basically?
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've been all of this time very founder centric. So
Okay.
when we started a founder's office, or when we started our family office, so we got to a point that we're like, okay, I'm kind of quitting. I'm going to go ski and coach and do different things. So we created a single family office at that time when that was still a relatively new concept.
Yeah.
And we would do joint investing with other family offices, and we had the legal finance background. They had other parts to it. They were generally manufacturing or other things, or tech, where they made their money, and we'd bring in this systemization. We were very, very founder-centric. And by that, what I mean is when the early VCs were coming into the founders, the model was come in, get the founder out because they can't run a company. They started it, they pulled it together, get the founder out, put them in a box. And we said, you know what if we kept the founder in? Because I'm around a lot of founders who ended up doing like Steve Jobs and that when they stayed in, the business did better.
Right.
You couldn't let them be CEOs.
No,
They're
because
not
that
the
was a
adult in
different
the
skill
room.
set. Right.
Yeah, they're not the adult in the room.
Right.
They're
But
the
you can help
creative.
them. Yeah.
So that's where we are now at the founder's office. So if you go out to foundersoffice.com, that tells a little bit more about us. It gives access to what we do from our brain trusts. The family office may or may not make investments. That's not what we're about from the founder's office. But we pulled our legal team and a number of our finance people and our strategy people, and they have built some really cool tools for founders to be able to use. We have a Wednesday noon Pacific lunch and learn where founders come on and tell us about what they're building. We help them with their presentation.
So do you
And,
hold positions in companies right now, like your office?
Several hundred, yeah.
And it's just really one family that you
It's
guys...
just our family, yeah. Just
Just
my
your
family.
family.
Just my
And so it's not a multifamily office. You might JV with other
We
offices.
do. We JV with a lot of other offices, yeah.
Okay, but it's all basically you've raised the money, but you have investors that are part of your group, right? That
We have no investors other
all
than
your own money.
It's other than co-investors that are 100% separate. Now,
Right, if you're doing a $100 million deal, you're putting up 50, they're putting up 50, you're joint JVing it. I understand.
Yeah. So in that case, we did do capital raising. We had a full venture funds, capital funds, a little more than $3 billion deployed for our total deals that we've done over the years. And we still guide in that area with the Founders Law Group. We are, again, founder-centric. We don't write the documents. We help them with the IP, but we get them to the IP. We become legal strategists for that specific piece of.
But the fund you raised, now you're not part of it. It's all your money.
It's our money.
So are you kind of like an accelerator? I mean, how do you look at yourself?
An accelerator is a good way to put it, but we also very much are an exit strategist.
Okay.
So we do the two sides of the food group. We do, and it came
But
about.
you're not doing startups for the most part, right?
We do early stage post friends and family capital.
Okay, fine.
But they've got generally their post, they've made $1.
Right. They have
scenario.
some proof of concept and some things going on.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in that case, actually, I was teaching at Harvard, and my business partner who hired me back at Wells Fargo was teaching at Stanford, and we wrote a program together called The 6 Secrets of Raising Capital.
Okay.
And taught that in the Cal system, and then the World Bank picked it up and traveled around the world trying to get places like Nigeria to become more entrepreneurial and be able to raise capital.
Sure.
And we really did come up with. I used to use it as the Betty Crocker method, but apparently our kids today don't know what
Betty
is.
Crocker. Yeah.
So I'm using it. We do the HelloFresh versus Top Chef.
They'll understand that because they don't even make the Betty Crocker Easy Bake Oven anymore.
No, I know it's just horrible.
It was very dangerous, I think. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. So but they can relate to those things. They can relate to HelloFresh and stuff.
So we're the HelloFresh of raising capital. So if you go out to our website, you can actually pitch on our website using 11 Labs. You can talk to it. It walks you through there. It uses a radar graph and scores you in the categories that we have found over the years what raises capital. And it really is a very basic storytelling old model. You've been in court before. You tell a good story. You win over the jury. It's the same scenario that we do. And it really starts with, in the U.S. particular, we're so work-centric. Most people start a conversation like, Mitch, what do you do?
Right.
And the better question,
because we live to work, we don't work to live like in other countries.
The better question is, Mitch, what problems are you solving? Right. What are you excited about right now, right? Yeah. So if we start with a problem, there's a fair amount of people that think, and I have this happen a lot, if you get around rich people, they're going to invest in your idea. And it's like, no, that's not right. What you need to do is you need to find the people that have the money that have already identified the problem that you're solving. You will raise the money much quicker. And I do this for nonprofits as well as, so I've sat on nonprofit boards for over 35 years, National Boys and Girls Club, down to the most local ski type things.
Right.
And it's the same deal. So what problem do you solve? How do you actually solve it? What proof do you have that it's actually being solved? And what's it mean if you solve it for the investor?
Right.
Then somebody's interested. And if you're convincing them, that's not the right investor.
Right.
So that's 35 years of experience in that scenario.
So most of your focus is helping and teaching business owners to how they should go about raising capital, or is it other things that are you helping them with operations? Are you helping them with whatever, leadership? I don't know.
All of that on the exit side. So that client's a $25 to $150, $200 million client, and generally where we come in there, believe it or not, it is still about capital. Because in most cases, they don't have the right aligned capital. The founders are still signing personal guarantees at the bank that they never wanted to leave because it was their friendly bank that gave them their very first loan. Right. And the reality is they shouldn't have any personal guarantees when they're running a $50 million company. And that's so much personal liability. It also then ties them to the valuation of their company. Mm-hmm. And so instead of getting an 8 or a 10 multiple, they're getting a 4 multiple because they're still talking to the best clients. They think that's part of what it is. So being a doctor, having a doctorate, my youngest daughter also has her doctorate, part of it is you have to actually name stuff. That's like a rule book. You have to come up with stuff and name it, right? So we named this affliction as the founder's isolation paradox. And what that is that, and it started with my son-in-law, he said, so the lawyers and the accountants don't talk to each other. You write the documents, and they're not even aligned in what you may be doing for strategy outside of here. And we're like, well, actually, no one talks to each other. They all are centered into this founder. And what we need to do is extract that founder out of being that process. That's where the 2 a.m. and almost every founder I've ever talked to, at 2 a.m., their spouse can be their business partner. They're sitting there, their eyes are wide open. They're thinking about, do I have to file bankruptcy tomorrow? What are we going to do here? How do I get to this next stage? And no one within that sphere is part of that conversation. They're having this conversation in their head because they're the only one that holds it all together. Yeah, well, it's even on the smaller scale, because I work with businesses probably under, I've done some bigger ones, but let's say under 50 million, mostly under 20 million, family-owned businesses, things like that. And we communicate CPAs and attorneys and all that kind of stuff, but the small business owner, like one of their concerns is, if I get all these people in the room, I'm going to get a big bill from everybody. Seriously, I think it ends up costing them more money, by the way, because there's mistakes that are made and there's things that are going on. We're structuring a deal based on something that the CPA might have told me, but he didn't get all the information from the owner.
and now we're going on bad information and stuff like that. So I think that, but like you said, it's like when you get up to that level and you're talking about a company that's doing 50 million, and the reason you shouldn't be personal is because there's plenty of collateral there. There's no reason why your life should also be on the line once you get third born too. It's ridiculous, but that's the way banks are. They want to put money in the bank and then they'll lend it to you. Like we have some local banks who do that. They're like, well, if you put 150,000 in the bank, we'll give you a $75,000 loan. I'm like, well, then they don't need the loan. Like that's stupid. So I think it is a different skill set, like you said, right? I think that, for a founder to stay on board but to also recognize that maybe he doesn't have the skills or needs to work with somebody to learn the skills. Because I guess Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple, was a better CEO, right, than he was when he got thrown out, because he really was a founder. He didn't have the skill set. I mean, that's what I read.
No, I think most people that really were inside that organization still thought he was an asshole.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was true till he passed away.
Yeah. But. So, and if you take, my wife was just telling me about this. So Larry Ellison, there's a book out there that says, what's the difference between Larry and God? God doesn't think he's Larry.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Egos get you very far.
Yeah. So, and not to pick on Larry about that, but it goes through there. And having been a founder of many organizations as well, I know my skill set is not being a CEO. I've got the education. I can do the job. It's poke my eyes out. I can hire way better CEOs.
Right. You could do it if you had to, but it's not the best use of your time.
Yeah.
Not even close.
I can be the CFO. I've been the CFO of many companies, but why do I want litigation? Why would I want to be the litigator in a deal? There's someone who will do it way better than I am.
I don't do
transactional law, poke my eyes out, right?
No, that's what I do.
You need a great transaction.
Yeah.
You need a great transactional lawyer. It makes life so much better.
Right.
Yeah. So all of that. So that's why I'm a legal strategist instead of actually doing anything real in the law.
So you're smart, right? You avoid practicing. So what are the common mistakes that you see? I mean, you've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of companies. I'm sure reviewed at least thousands of companies. What are common mistakes that you see people making? Let's talk about on the founder side and raising capital, and then you can talk about it on the succession, exit side too, because I know a lot of them, but I'd like to hear what you say.
So the number one, well, I don't want to say number one, but a primary mistake in raising capital is they don't get their story down.
Okay.
And they've become worse than I've ever seen it because of AI and a whole bunch of people that are like, send me and we'll write a deck for you. And then they get their deck done and they're like, this is the deck model that raised Google's, initial round. And it's like, it has nothing to do with storytelling, because if you're using somebody else's, you really haven't gotten your story. So if you start with what problem you solve and you can articulate it that fast, truly, then what you will be doing is attracting the right type of investors. Because if you get alignment with your investors, there's so many things that are positive about that. Because when things don't go right, and they never always go right.
Right, of course.
Right? When they're aligned, they're there with you. If they're only there for the coupon, then what ends up happening is when they don't get it, you start getting lawsuits and all sorts of other challenges, and you end up managing the investors instead of managing the business and growing the business and doing the things. So you've got to really figure out, and you're constantly growing with that. So even with the companies that are 200 million, when they can articulate the problem they solve, they just got a multiple on their exit. And by the way, they don't have to exit. They could just recapitalize, take money off of it, stay in the company because they love it, but now they don't have any of the risk. And we've done that a lot, where they stay in, and then they start working through transition. Because, Mitch, the one thing that is absolutely certain is every founder, even the sole proprietor with a shingle, will exit.
Yeah.
They have to.
Might be death, but either way they're out.
Something happens. And then somebody's got to clean that mess up.
Right.
So every founder exit at some level. And so when you start thinking about the end in mind, you build a better business that then takes bit systems and structure and places in there. So you ask, what do we do on the other side? We come in, we do an evaluation, we get a valuation of the company. We say, okay, this is where your valuation is today. We did one of these about 3 years ago. Now the guy's just exited about 6 months ago. Come in, and he's like, 15 million? I didn't think my company's worth 15 million. Yes, find me a buyer.
Right.
And I looked at him, I said, look, when we do the accounting, you think you take a $400,000 paycheck. You don't. you take about a $2 million paycheck because, when you go off to Europe and you write that off and you do all these other things.
Yeah, you're taking money that's not going to come off the table once you're out of the picture.
Yeah. And I said, and your day is about the business. We got to get you set up. We got to get these systems and processes in place. Long short of it is, and by the way, you're going to get taxed at like the highest tax level because you have a whole bunch of depreciated assets that are going to come back and they're going to do a recapture tax and all these various things that are in there. And so I said, let's work on this. We got this done. They exited at $45 million.
Nice.
He paid almost no tax.
Nice.
He retained his real estate and he retained his intellectual property for the system. So he has an ongoing paycheck because we almost always strip out the IP.
And then you license it back or something?
You license it back to the company, which is one of the major things that a founder can do because it's theirs.
Yeah.
And then also, by the way, if they do buy you out of that, that's goodwill. And guess what tax rate you pay on goodwill? You pay, again, capital gains.
Yeah, it's capital gain, of course. No basis, though, right?
There's no basis. Well, there doesn't. Yeah, it depends upon how you structure it. So yes, so there's different ways to do that. But yes, you have no basis. But you can end up having a licensing fee where you get paid. Anyway, that's where we are on the other side. And it was, it wasn't a big business, 15 million valuation, but the 45 million at 68 years old makes a lifestyle difference for him.
Of course. That was because you restructured their accounting and their books and their
and their valuation. Basically, mostly we got the founder out of there, and the valuation then made it prime target for a roll-up of another company that was in that same space. So we go out and identify. In identifying the problem, you then identify who's the ideal investor or the ideal buyer, and then you can say, okay, how do we build to sell to that? When you just think any rich person who's going to invest in my company is the buyer, you're going to be talking and telling stories and convincing him forever.
Right.
And Joe, I don't know if you know Joe Polish, but he's got this great program.
I don't know him personally, but I know who he is, of course.
So Joe and he's been out to my house a number of times, and we brought one of his youth programs out to Tahoe and took them through. So he's got 40 kids in the program. We took them up to the mines and out to Tesla and different things. So Joe and Dean Jackson have this thought that marketing is about attracting the right person and repelling the wrong person. And that's really important. It's not about convincing the wrong person. It's about repelling them because our most limited factor is time. That's our biggest constraint.
Right. If you're wasting your time in front of the wrong people. Yeah, you can't convince the wrong people to do what you want them to do. It's just not going to happen.
And you don't want to.
Right. If you do, it's going to be a disaster.
It is. They're going to raise, but if you do it for 20%, I'll do it. No, that's not it. They're not, no.
Those are the wrong people.
If you give me a personal guarantee, I'll do it. No,
Yeah.
You know what? We help that. That's another big one. We get the story right. Banking is the same way. It still works with these 6 C's that we have. So if you're going into the bank and you've put your financial package together, you identify the bank that's already looking for you as a customer.
Yeah.
And there are banks that are actually targeting you as the customer. And so, you come in and started a number of banks. You go find that bank and you get a banking relationship with them because you're the one they want to date and marry.
Right. But they don't require your children to be locked up in the back vault and guarantees on everything. Yeah. No, I mean, look, if you're a small business owner, you're worth a couple of $1 million and you have basic credit, of course you're going to have to sign personally and be personal on things. But if you have a company that's got $50 million of value, there's no reason why.
No.
Good lending institution shouldn't be, should holding you personally responsible.
And
it's ridiculous.
almost all founders, the statistic by EPI out there is 80% of the wealth of most founders is in their business.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And can you imagine being their spouse and all the risk that goes on and the stress? And we talked about it that, you come walking in at 6 p.m. and your spouse wants to know how your day went, and you don't want to talk to your spouse about how your day went. Because you don't want to relive every single thing that was going on during that day.
Yeah, no, you're relieved that it's over and you fought your battles, and you know what? That's the way I feel. I get home and
I just want to kiss and sit down.
I did the same thing I did yesterday, and she doesn't know what kind of battles I have, and sometimes I can't remember them because I'm the kind of person that when the battle's over, I wrote something down I got to do tomorrow. It's not in my head. I don't need to. My kids make fun of me. Dad, I got to send you an email every time. If you don't send me an email, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to walk around with it. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night writing things. I used to do that when I was young. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and think of 14 things I had to do tomorrow. Like, I'd write them down because I couldn't sleep. I don't do that anymore now, but that's comes with scale and organization. And
Mitch, that's the founder's isolation paradox right there in certain ways, right? And then you set up systems and structure, and it gets it out of the way. And we've never, ever had a better time grew up in the Star Trek age, and then Jarvis came out, type scenario. I'm watching
Right.
these computers, and I'm in Silicon Valley, and I'm seeing what the future is going to look like.
It's going to look like that. It's not going to be movies anymore. Yeah.
No, it's
I mean,
so
look what's
cool.
happening with AI and all these agents that people are building, the automations they're putting in the business and the tools they're using. I mean,
We have an army of agents, and we have an army of humans that are making the agents and controlling them. Because, by the way, what agents need? They
People.
actually need managers. They
Right.
need managers to tell them they're off track, they're on track, they're doing better. Because they are a learning mechanism,
Right.
and so you need to set up processes and systems. And yes, they can help you get there, but even though they're supposedly autonomous, they're still not autonomous. And very good, young man. His name's Nate Herc. If you don't follow Nate out there, he's 24 years old. He's
Nate
got a
Herc,
great
H-U-R?
Herk. Herkelman
Okay.
is actually his name, but Nate Herc.
Okay.
So for your people watching him out there, he's got a great YouTube channel, and he's active on LinkedIn like you are. He does these podcasts every day, and they're very brief. But he explained it to us in such a great, simple thing, which was think of an agent as a kindergartner. You can let him go out in the front yard, but you don't let him go too far, and you definitely keep your eyes on him through the window.
Yeah. No, because these things go down a rabbit hole. Like, there was this. I told somebody about it the other day. I speak about it all the time. It was a podcast series. It was like a fictional podcast, right? And someday I'm going to remember what the name of the podcast was. But basically, what happened was it was in a world in the future where we had so much data in the cloud. Like everybody had your whole life was there, and you get right, and we're running out of storage, and you have to pay for more storage, and they created these agents, these AI agents that would go to your data and look through your data and figure out like what you don't need and what you do need or whatever. But what happened was the agent would start going down a rabbit hole after things were deleted, and it would say, "Well, Thomas doesn't need this because we deleted that," and it caused what was called the Great Deletion.
Oh,
And the whole world went back to analog because there was no data left.
Wow, that's a very possible.
Because there's no agent that's going to say, well, that's ridiculous. Why did we delete everything? Like, no, they're computers. They don't know. They're not humans.
Well, a real life story for that is a famous Mars candy was the people come in, the PE starts buying in. They're like, well, this ingredient doesn't matter, and they take out one of these original ingredients. And if you look at Oreo cookies, they're nothing of the original Oreo cookies that used to be, right? That grew the company. But they take out this ingredient, they take out this ingredient, and then they do their testing, and people wouldn't think it was any big deal. But if you ever tasted one from the beginning all the way to the end, it was massively different.
Yeah, if you could do taste tests of different eras. Yeah. Wasn't there a recent lawsuit or something happened with like the great-great-grandson of the Reese's family, right? And they had changed the formula. It wasn't really chocolate or wasn't really sugar. Right, because it's capitalism. It's big business. They're looking to save money and do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But you're right. That's kind of what
it's quarterly reporting.
That's
why we like founders and we live in the founder world, because it's not quarterly reporting. It is daily reporting oftentimes, but it's but it is fun and it's interesting. It's never ending, and we've had so many different types of investments. We've been across the boards.
I'd like to hear about like what industries do you see a lot of things happening with?
So we've always been very interested in the lending industry. So we buy a lot of debt. And especially when things go really hairy wrong, we've bought a tremendous amount of portfolios at that point and do workouts in that. But I love the energy industry across the board, from geothermal to big old oil and gas scenario. We have always loved commercial real estate and think that there's a lot of fit in there. There's a lot of food groups, and that's international as well. I have EU citizenship as well as U.S. citizenship, so we do stuff abroad. And
those
then,
companies are like management companies, construction companies you're investing
usually
in?
management companies, but construction companies will somewhat do a construction deal, but it's all based off of the management company.
Okay.
Because that's where it gets the value. But our like bread and butter has been what became a term called fintech.
Yeah.
So financial tech coming out of Silicon Valley and out of banking. And then we moved into also medtech. So that's of late, those have been our most recent major investments are in the medtech side.
And these are companies that provide mostly software products, I guess, for the financial or the medical industry. Are they also physical products?
There's hardware. There's a
Hardware?
fair amount of hardware, but it's the software that makes the company actually run. So the hardware gets, I don't know if you've seen some of the recorder devices for AI. Over time, it's now all of a sudden into an Apple Watch. So you want to be very careful about the hardware scenario, because we used to have these things that you would put your check on and then it would deposit into your bank. That was great, except now you can take the picture with your phone.
With your phone, right? Exactly.
You hate to be the manufacturer scanner, right?
Yeah, no,
so
true.
The hardware's important, but it does get traded out faster, and the software is constantly being built.
Yeah, well, some of these people running these AI agents, they're running them on those Apple Minis. It's just like, remember Raspberry Pis? It's the same type of things. These tiny computers that are more powerful than what we bought when we were in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. My first computer was a 512K.
Yeah.
Today, people don't even understand what 512K
My
means.
first computer in college was a Macintosh 128K. I wrote a 5-page paper and it crashed. I had to get the computer students, because you couldn't open them up in those days. They would crack open the thing and burn in chips. You couldn't even just pop them in.
Nope.
So yeah,
that's kind of where Zoolander came out. It's in the computer.
Exactly. But that's the world, right? The hollowing out of the device. We don't.
Maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another. Evenoo is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks. Visit evenoo.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the Accidental Entrepreneur referred you. This podcast is brought to you by our affiliate sponsor, iEmployee. iEmployee is a virtual assistant service that hires almost anyone for any role in your company right out of the Philippines. Most roles range from $7 to $9 an hour for highly skilled and experienced VAs. And whether you need an executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, customer service, sales, you name it, they have it. We use iEmployee for our VA services, from editing and promoting the podcast to all the PR and promotion of our law firm. iEmployee acts as a virtual field supervisor on the back end with live video monitoring and reports on a daily basis with screenshots of your VA's workday, and along with complete HR and payroll duties. No more paying for overpriced and underqualified workers. There's a link in the show notes to get a 1-week free trial, and I encourage you to take advantage of it.
We don't have anything on our computers anymore. It's all cloud. I don't really run. I can't think of any software system I run now in my office that's resident to my computer.
I think you're going to see some come back. We've got a company that we just recently were meeting with, and they are running your very specifically not for the big businesses. So we're a financial services. We've got we still have servers. We have stuff that stays very local.
Right.
But this is running local on a lot of your stuff that you do in cloud or chat or any of the others. And so it's local. So one, you don't get any hallucinations, but two, you don't get any breach of data.
Well, that's some of the industries that's important.
Yeah, and that's going to be, so that's an investment area that we're looking at. And then, so RegTech and then medtech, RegTech is the next one. And especially for the legal industry.
Okay.
So you think, we would work these poor interns to death. They'd come out before they're even out of law school, they're L2s, and they'd come out, and 2Ls, and they'd come out, and you'd be like, oh, you get to work for free, and this is all you're going to do. And then the partner takes all the credit and the money. That's changing, right? And you've got to be able to have the non-hallucination, but if you've been out to Bloomberg Law and bought their subscription, it's phenomenal, the case underwriting that you can do. So those are good. Those are good investments as well.
Yeah, no. I definitely see AI, eliminating the room of 20 associates going through hundreds of pages of documents. When in the future it'll be fed into a computer, and then they'll give the boss a report, and they'll have a couple people check some things, and that'll be it. A tenth of the time with a tenth of the people, which is not good for all the lawyers that want to keep their jobs, but that's life.
And probably a 2x or 5x probability of being correct. Meaning the things that would miss or be done, as a transactional lawyer, you get in there, you're a great transactional lawyer, and at times you go, and we missed that. Yeah,
it happens. When you're reading a lot of documents, it happens. And as inaccurate as, AI gets criticized for its inaccuracies, that will change, of course. And, a human being can't review that much data. And by the way, you're reviewing something and I'm looking at something, and maybe they conflict with each other, but we don't talk about it because it's definitely going to change.
And
a lot of
you and I have different, let's say, even litigation experience,
right? Life experience, job experience. Right.
I'll be talking to transactional lawyers, and we'll talk about the power of an LLC.
Yeah.
And I said, we never allow our members, our clients, to have single member LLCs. And they're like, why not? It's a very tax efficient manner to do it.
Ignored for tax purposes.
They've got limited liability. I said, if you want to be in front of a jury and you want to explain to a jury why they have to show up with their personal tax returns instead of the entity's tax return, and
you want that clean.
The IRS calls it a disregarded entity,
right?
And you want that opposition attorney saying this, and you think you're going to be able to explain that by Nevada statutes that you've got, it's a limited. No, you have to look at it this way. The jury doesn't have to do anything.
Right. They don't even understand half of the stuff you're talking
about. If your clients or your people listening do anything, don't have single member LLCs.
Right. Well, I mean, also from an audit standpoint, you want to have clean separate books. But look, like in my case, I'm a single member LLC. Unless I brought in a partner, and I don't have partners right now, can't make my wife a member.
No, because then that's still a disregarded entity.
Right.
With a spouse.
Right.
But what you can do is simply set up a management company with a small trust, and the management company always owns 1%, and then you're not a manager member. The manager of it is your management. Because almost
can lawyers do that in New Jersey? I don't know if they're. I don't know.
I bet you can.
I have to look into that.
But then in that case, it's got a percentage. The other part of that is one of them can be taxed as a C corp, as opposed to a pass-through. And if it's taxed as a C corp, then having it, which you can have as an LLC, that allows for it to stop there at that NT.
Got it. All right, I'll look into that.
Hard to do as a single member. There are ways to do it. Anyway, so we look at from the risk, what's going to get you sued, more so what's going to keep you from getting sued and having to settle, because getting sued is not a big deal. And you're not going to go to court. Very few cases do. It's the settlement.
Right. Of course. How do you get out of this with as little damage as you can?
Yeah. So we try and keep founders keeping their limbs and their pound of flesh around their heart and all the various things.
Yeah. So I thought of a question before when you were talking. When you're dealing with people who are older and they're looking to transition out of their business, like when is too late to start thinking about that stuff? Like, obviously, they don't come to you and say, Tom, we're thinking of selling our business in a month.
They do. They actually do.
Well, I know, but they shouldn't.
No. The ideal, it takes about 3 years for most of the cases, unless something's really been going on, because there's so much to fix.
Yeah.
A lot of times what we've got to fix is the founder, getting them to understand. It's almost reintroducing them to their spouse, like they've been away at prison or away, serving across in a foreign country.
Right.
It's like, you've got to build a life outside of the company, because your identity is so tied up to it that when you stop doing that, it doesn't end well. You either take your big wins and you reinvest in the next company. And by the way, much of the time you lose, because you usually bet on another horse that you see your value in there. So we set all these things up to where you are transitioning out slowly. And again, even if you're not going to transition out, we have a fair amount of founders that look at it and go, I don't want to transition out. This is so much fun. And I'm not doing anything that I didn't like to do. I'm only doing what I like to do, and the company's running. It's like, great, let's get some capital off. Let's get everything taken care of. And then let's make sure we have a transition plan for when you do have to leave. And then let's walk. What does that look like? Is it an ESOP? So most ESOPs, I think, fail.
You still see ESOPs?
Yeah, you do.
Right.
And we generally, I've been never a fan of ESOPs until now at this point where it's like, this can actually make sense if it's not the only way out. It's actually a chosen way out, and you found and identified the right people.
Right.
And so
you still need people to run the company. You can't just sell it to your shop workers and then
no.
Have a nice life.
Yeah. So by that time, you've built the right team that's managing the company. You're not holding on to the clients. You don't have any personal guarantees on debt. And that's one of our primary ones. Get them out of the personal guarantees on debt so that you're not carrying any of that risk. Right. Now it's a company. You're still having fun. You can serve, instead of having an earn out that you have to be there, you've got a position because you want to be there and they want you to be there.
So I had two questions for you. One is I find that some of the small businesses that we do under 20 million, let's say, sometimes they don't have 3 years to clean up the books.
It's true.
The guy's in his 90s, and you're like, well, if we don't finish this transaction, he might die. And I actually had a deal where we just couldn't get our arms around it. It was just too much of a mess. It was a semiconductor company. And the big play was the real estate because they owned a big building, right? Somebody came in, did the deal. The guy died in the middle of the transaction. They had it held up, everything got tied up and whatever. He just waited too long. But my question was, something you just mentioned, I can't remember. I just lost my train of thought. Because it was important. I was going to ask you a question about what were you talking about before I said that? You were just telling me about.
Now it sounds like two lawyers just making up lies
Right,
that are sitting around the table and billing for it.
Right, exactly. No,
it was about exits and so when are they going to exit? And we're talking about ESOPs, and is an ESOP actually even of value? Where does it work? And being a good economist and a lawyer, so on the economists say on one hand and on the other hand, and then lawyers say it depends, and so I get to be non-committal on every single thing we do. But it's on a good way, because what we're looking at is what's the unintended consequence of anything that you're doing. Every single thing has an unintended consequence.
Okay.
So when should they start? Well, the best time to plant the tree, as we say, is 30 years ago. The second best time is today. So the best time to get started is when you're in your youth or you just started the company. We're actually working with a number of early stage founders now, even though we did the capital on them, we're really working more on their exit, which we didn't used to do.
Okay.
We're like, okay, let's continue to build this with systems and structure. We used to care about only getting a return on our money, get them out, get their companies going, get that stable. Now it's like, no, we really want to see this life cycle of these founders and let them know you're a founder.
Yeah.
This is your creativity. This is a company. It's not you.
Right.
And from the lawyer
If it
standpoint,
is you, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Right.
How many founders say though, me?
Right. They can't
and
do
it's
it
really
without
their
me.
company.
Yeah, well, that's always the problem. The smart ones that I've met who are very successful build the business with the in mind of how quickly can I get out of this? How do I find a guy to do it better than I can do it? And then I'll start another business. I remembered what I was going to ask you.
Okay.
When you're bringing in an equity investor, right? You're raising capital for your business. How are these deals often structured? Are they more often like debt structure with options to convert to equity? Are they straight equity? Are they getting return on their capital, or are they really waiting till there's a sale? Does there have to be a sale? I mean, what do these deals look like, and what are these investors looking for when they put money on the table?
So on my Substack, I was following a couple of people pontificating about this, and they're doing the Y Combinator safe, and I'm like, we never ever invest in a safe.
Yeah, no safe notes.
If you can't identify how I'm going to, what value you think you're growing towards, even if I know it's all bogus, but you can identify that you've done that hard work, and you can tell me what percentage I'm going to own and where this money's going to go. I don't want to invest in you. And that doesn't mean that that's not the right for some people, but I never really think safes are the right for the investors, even if they make money. It's the adage of you and I go out for a beer, we both drive home, we get home safe. That was a bad decision and a good outcome. You and I get a beer, both of us take an Uber, one of us gets hit and killed. That was still a good decision, a bad outcome. Too many times we measure stuff by the outcome.
It's an interesting analogy.
Yeah, instead of what actually was a good decision. And if you repeatedly do good decisions, you're going to generally have better outcomes. Once in a while, you get lucky, right? So that's really where you want to be able to look at this as you're building it with the capital. So with the equity, the design is, where do you think it's going to go? So it's stages along there. We name it A, B, and C round type scenarios, pre-money, post-money valuation. What's this look like? Well, in almost all cases, there should be a call to action of what this money does. So if you, Mitch, invest in my company, I'm going to actually be able to take my concept that we've got 100 people willing to pay $10 for it, and we're going to be able to hire a marketing professional, and we're going to be able to take the branding professional, and we're going to be able to tie up the IP. And so your $250,000 coming in is going to give us a multiple over the next 3 years to make it worth $5 million.
Well, that's the difference between pre-money and post-money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You now will own 10% of that. So of that 5 million, if we're successful on that pathway, then what you're going to have is a 10x on your 250,000, type scenario or whatever it is. However we go through that. That takes mental discipline,
Right.
which is not what you're seeing.
How is I understand that if the investor comes in and they want a safe note because they're not really committal, maybe they're not the right investor, right? But if they are coming in for the 10x because they're putting gasoline on a fire that really can grow in the right scenario, right? How do they realize that return? It's tied up in the company, or what are we doing?
There's a lot of ways. Well, I think that if the founder's looking at the exit in a mindset, I mean, what's happening in San Francisco this week is, 75 people were able to take off up to $35 million in an early stage, non-publicly traded yet, but there's plenty of people who want to buy their shares scenario. So the public markets aren't as necessary as they used to be by any means.
Right.
So what's going to be the exit strategy? Because again, all founders exit. So are you going to recapitalize through bank loans? You're going to pay people off that way. You're going to recapitalize the debt there. You're just going to be a coupon. You're going to be a coupon collector for the rest and just
getting income every quarter or whatever.
And just get whatever that is.
Right.
It depends, and it depends upon the structure of the company. And that's a great question. How do I get my money back?
Right.
Because otherwise,
the question. That's the question, right? Because you can grow and you can say, look, we're going to be 20 actually, put your money in, great. But they got to have a way to get me out. I want my money.
Well, why? So last year, 2025, and I'm going to be off on my numbers a little bit, but it was the first time in our public markets we had more foreign companies go public in the U.S. than domestic companies.
Really?
Yes. Our domestic companies are staying private longer, and they don't want to deal with the SEC and all the other challenges that go with it.
Because I was the foreign companies that wanted nothing to do with the SEC, and they're always pulling out of the states, but they're doing it.
Here's where the really interesting statistic is. 93%. I was speaking in Madrid, where as pontificating on law in Madrid to IE law school. 93% of cross-border companies, meaning they're in
companies that do business in different countries,
more than one country,
right?
Filed. That was their IPOs, was in the U.S.
In the U.S.
So we're still the most stable, most transparent, most global. Right. Even though you've got the London Exchange, you've got the Singapore Exchange, you can go there. But that scenario is because that then gives them liquidity, gives them reach to this market, gives them all sorts of reasons. We've made it too difficult. I think that we're going to be moving, I could talk for 2 shows on the SEC, but I think, we can, there's a lot of things we can do much better in the capital space.
Right.
But companies, even if the owner puts their own money in, they should go through this discipline because they want to know how they're going to get their money out. Otherwise, they're just buying a job.
Well, right? I mean, that's what I would say. If the whole company's about you, then you just happen to be employed by a company you also happen to own. Like it's not, you're not really an owner. You're not really able to go down the street and let your company run for itself. I mean, no. And the smartest guys I know equip their companies that way. Like that's what their goal is. Their goal is, how can I become unimportant to this business as fast as I can, and still, grow it and do your job, and then go off and you're a founder, go found another company.
Yep. Dan Sullivan does it really well with Strategic Coach.
Very good. What's the book?
Who Not How.
Who Not How. Right.
With Ben and so I've been fortunate. I've known Dan for 26 years, and Dan introduces me sometimes as the guy. Very slow learner with deep pockets, and I'm his ideal client.
Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah. So, Dan's a bright guy. I've never got through the Strategic Coach program, but I've had a lot of clients that have.
Yeah, I was just there Tuesday. 26
Were
years.
You?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for 26 years?
26 years.
Yeah.
So,
real smart guy.
It's a matter
of... How old
of,
is Dan now?
He just had his 80th birthday last year.
Yeah, figured.
So, we were there celebrating with him.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice. I got a real celebrity on the show today. I don't usually connect with people who.
Not me. I just know the celebrity.
Right,
I'm not the celebrity. Nobody knows who the hell I am.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, they do now, right? Yeah. So, what you were talking about the markets and how they're raising money. I'm curious as to what like where do these people go to raise this capital? Like I've heard stories about, especially I deal with much smaller companies, right? So when you're going out raising capital, everybody's skeptical. They all want your shirt and your 14 children and everything like that, and they all want safe notes, and they want personal guarantees, whatever. It's ridiculous. So if you're out raising money, right, and you're a 10 or 15 million dollar company, or you're doing 10, 15 million in gross sales, like how many people do you usually have to talk to before you start getting some people interested in saying yes? Is it less because they're getting advice from you? Does it take? I mean, the guy from Peloton said it was like 450 to talk to, or something like that. Until we started raising
it could be thousands of people.
Yeah.
But we do say this, and we hold a number of different little events at different times over my career. But again, if you just go to the 6Csframework.com and you hit Pitch Lab on there and you try it, and then it'll take you to the probability of investment, and you start playing around with these, and you get your total presentation. And it's not just a BS presentation. It's not just, I can pitch it really well, because it's about the substance that goes in. And by the way, you're going to build a better business too, because you have to think about a lot of hard things.
Yeah, which people don't do.
Yeah, right? They don't do it.
They just start. They do it.
Yeah, they've
no
got an
business
idea.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, they got an idea, and then they keep going on there. And by the way, having all this stuff prepared isn't about anything other than saving time. It goes to that Stephen Covey quote that says, I think he quoted Abraham Lincoln, says, if I had to cut a tree down in an hour, I'd spend 50 minutes sharpening my saw, type scenario. So, and that's probably not the perfect ideal quote of it, but the scenario is, if you spend
Preparation
time,
is 90% of it, right?
It is.
Yeah, of course.
You spend the time. So in our case, we believe that you cut down probably 90% of your conversations. And we don't have statistics that actually back that up. But a big part of the secret, Mitch, is once you get the identified problem that you solve and how you solve it, then you go out to a number of the different sites that actually, like Crunchbase, let's say, and you're like, in this space, who's making the investments? Oh, it's Andreessen and Horowitz. Well, I just watched, I just was with Ben, a few weeks ago. I mean, it's probably not necessarily the truth for anybody else, but they're like, oh yeah, so we could do this. And what are they looking at doing? Because what they're already investing in, guess what they're going to do? They're going to invest in more than one company in that space. They don't invest in one company because they've got too much research in that space, and they don't know which horse. People that own horses own a lot of racehorses. They don't generally own one racehorse.
Right. Nor is there one company that dominates a market. I mean, there's plenty of room for people.
There's always, and we don't want to be in any that is so small that you only want one. We want a big idea. We want something that's going to be a big idea. Yeah. So they're backing both Anthropic and whatever it's coming on. It's just going to be
the next .com bust is going to be like all these companies are. Anthropic may be an exception, and Amazon and all the money companies have money, but the ones that don't, they're going to burst.
It's going to be ugly, and I think it will be worse than 99. The markets are so frothy. But as I will tell you, I have identified 10 of the last 2 downturns. Meaning, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I cannot believe I'm so conservative about this. I really think this is going to fail. And then it succeeds. I'm like, damn, I missed that one.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no good fundamentals on this scenario.
Well, but that's, I mean, it's just luck, right? I mean, you got to stick with you can't give up your fundamentals. You can't give up your process if it's working for you because you say, I missed that one. And then you're going to change everything. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, and that's really
unless
important.
You question what your process is, unless maybe my process doesn't make sense, so you get evaluated. But
so if you go out to the investment probability framework on the website and you look at it, it's got these 27 points that we initially look at, and we put it in a Likert scale, so you can kind of like you're going to the doctor, you can be like, I don't feel so well, yes I do, and then it puts it into a radar graph, so you really do get a quick dashboard of it. Does it fit into the key places? There's 2 sides to that. If you've made some money and you start investing, and guess where most founders invest?
You mean after they become successful?
Yep.
Yeah.
real estate or other founders.
Yeah, passive assets, right.
They don't go into the public markets in most cases. So they're going into the founders. So our framework is our framework. It's actually the framework that we developed over years of saying the initial first pass is this, and does that work? And so we can actually now see very quickly, identify and go through deals much faster. It doesn't fit.
Well, I mean, because emotions don't help you. Like people make emotional decisions and they have a framework and it's working for them. They still make emotional decisions. I just had a guy in the show recently. He was in finance originally, had an investment company in the might have been Utah, but it was somewhere out by Iowa maybe. Very successful. And then he started other businesses, but they weren't even related to what he was doing. It was like plumbing. It was like window replace. I said, why did you do this? He says, because I had a formula that worked, and I found this business, and then I found somebody who knew how to run it, and I put the stuff on the table, and we used the formula, and it worked. Now, somewhere along the line, one of the partners turned out to be a crook and was running a Ponzi scheme that he didn't know about, and then it's okay because this is coming out anyway. The episode's coming out, and then basically, one day the IRS and the SEC shows up at his door, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And the whole thing blew up. Everything got frozen. Companies went on, and he rebuilt it. Like, I don't know, he had to work at Burger King to pay his bills and then rebuilt it and built up companies that are very successful now. But beyond being like stolen from, like fraud, like, Elizabeth Holmes, like really snow jobbing you, right? Beyond that, if you have a tried and true process that you have worked out that works and you stick to it and you don't let yourself go, oh, no, this is a different one. This is really great. This is going to happen. It's okay if it does, right? Because if it doesn't, it's a bigger damage to what you're doing.
It is. And by the way, when you justify, it's called investing. It's not investing in treasuries. That's not investing. That's saving.
Yeah, that's just putting money away.
Treasury
right.
Is that is not investing.
Right.
Even though the A.G. Edwards person would tell you that is, this is an investment. No, that is not investing. But investing in startups, early stage startups, even if you are a professional investor, Warren Buffett doesn't get them all right. You can see his losses that he has too. He's gotten some really big ones really right over the time before he retired, right? Type scenario. And that's where you get this thing. And by the way, his most the big investment that really made him a lot of money was also on the teeter of failing numerous times in the beginning, and we would have never heard of Warren Buffett most likely, right? If it hadn't gone off the chart. So that's where that scenario is.
All right. So it's the foundersoffice.com, right? We'll put link in the show notes. I assume you're on LinkedIn too, and all that.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all those things. I'm on LinkedIn, and then my team has me on all these other things that they do this type of stuff. I've got a Substack that we have a number of people.
Substack, big. You got to be somebody to be on Substack.
Big. And, so we do the Founders Office on the Substack, as we also do the Publius. So when you talk about that, I had one investment, one crook. I probably had more than one crooks, but we had one major crook, and we lost $400 million.
There you go.
And that,
you're going to be a crook. I mean, big.
Big, right? Bad actor. And we had co-investors in there and all these things. And I bumped up against the SEC and in this scenario. And so when you bump up against the SEC, you do end up losing a limb or something, even if you
they freeze your whole life.
Well, because, Elon even settled this week. Now, he settled for $1.5 million for his purchase of. Now, but by the way, interesting. The judge didn't accept the offer. Said no. This sounds like a kiss deal.
It was $1.5 million was the settle.
That was the settle.
He probably had that in cash in his pocket.
Come on, he makes that in less than a quarter of a second.
Right, I know.
Quarter of
Crazy.
a second.
I know.
So I have had all of that experience. Of having that kind of fun experience. And by the way, that's how my oldest daughter, who runs our family office, starts conversations, right? So she's watched all of this, and she says, I don't want to hear about your successes.
Right.
I want to know when you got bloody.
Yeah.
And how did you come through that? And by the way, if you're the hero of the story, that's not what I want. I want that you were down, out. And
let's hear all the learning experiences and how big they were.
I know how you overcame those challenges.
And Thomas, what's the book? You said 6 C's to the
the book that Bill Fisher, that's my friend. It's called The 6 Secrets of Raising Early Stage Capital.
Okay.
We've got a number of books out there. I actually wrote about we were talking about The Big Short when you and I were first starting. And I wrote a book pre to The Big Short called Standing in the Rain. Still people buy it often, relative, because it simply explains how that meltdown worked.
So basically you knew The Big Short before they did.
We did. Yeah, we actually sold a mortgage bank.
But you should have invested in it.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't short that, but we did end up buying a bunch of bank portfolios, and that was a great exit for us at the end of the day because we bought a bunch of really hairy deals. But here was also the part of that. We bought one from a large bank, a bunch of finished lots that they were called. Cost $75,000 per lot to finish them. That was actual cost, not land cost, just finish cost, right? Bank had financed them at 125, valued them at 250. So banks can make really stupid mistakes, and oftentimes do. We told the bank we'd buy them for like 60. They told us to go pound sand. We ended up buying them for 37.5.
Okay.
Sounds like a great deal, right? Because we then bought all those lots at 37.5, we just created the market, and everybody else's lots dropped to 27.5.
Right, the whole market collapsed.
Yeah. And so now all of a sudden we're like, holy cow, we're $10,000 overvalued on our lots.
Because you are the comp is what happens, right?
Exactly. So, what we had to do, we had a whole bunch of investors.
What does finished mean? The lot was like finished with like
curbs,
stuff
gutters,
in the ground.
everything.
And
all they had to do was put the house on.
The house wasn't up, but the streets, the sewers, everything was there.
Everything was there. Right?
Got it. Like you ready to put a shovel in the ground. Basically.
Yeah. Long, short, we made a lot of money on that deal.
Oh, ultimately you did?
We had to wait a little bit longer than we did, and most people forget how long, what time is for value of money.
Yep. They don't count that. People don't know what opportunity cost is. All economics. It's always an alternative to your use of your money. So that's what it is. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time. I know you probably want to get out and ski or snowboard or something out in Colorado, out in Utah. And I definitely will put the show notes together.
Cool.
And we'll connect people. And I say what's great about this stuff is just good conversations that hopefully help people that are listening. And,
Yeah, reach out to us. We'll get you the 2 links. The 6 C's, which is what we took the 6 secrets, and I actually broke it down to just the first secret, and we wrote that the 6 C's, which is challenge, champion, change, call to action, and connection.
Okay.
And so that's for people to remember how they tell their stories, and it's for their life of their companies. You're going into the bank, you follow it. I've got on that website page, I wrote, I think, 7 case studies. Okay. And you can see how they phrase those things. So somebody's going to a bank. This is how they'd phrase it. Somebody's doing an exit. This is how they phrase it. Somebody's doing an early stage startup, doesn't have $1. This is how they'd phrase it.
So they're like guides a little bit.
Yeah. And then there's actually a scenario where it'll put it on the Likert scale and say, nope, based off of this, you're not there yet. Make this stronger. And it gives a guide.
Okay. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And I knew it took us a while to connect, but great conversation. I appreciate it.
Mitch, thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. Like us. If you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners.